Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The senator from District 5 here in Arkansas, State Senator Brian King, is back with us. Brian, good to have you, sir.
Hey, good to be on, Paul.
Let's talk about the news. Over the weekend, I guess it broke. Michael Wickline with the headline, State Senator won't seek re-election. Tell us about that, Brian. Why did you decide not to run again? Because you are a great conservative with a great passion for transparency. So what led up? What contributed to the decision of not running for re-election?
Yeah, most of it is with the farm and everything. I'm not 3.5 hours from Little Rock, and a lot of things have changed in the last 12 years about what's going on here, and so it's family reasons, and just that's one thing that's the primary focus, for me, and so that's kind of it, and it's if you look at it from the Little Rock perspective, I mean, I think some other people kind of expanded on some of the frustrations you see down there, since Republicans have taken control, if you want to call it that, in so-called Republicans. I mean, crimes, we've talked about this, crime's horrible. It's gotten worse. There's all-time record spending. Mm-hmm. There's more people on Medicaid. And, they go out there and continue to mislead people. And just, it's just very frustrating in the legislature to sit there and no matter what facts come out, no matter what comes out, they just continue to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing in D.C. It's the same frustration up there. How many years did they campaign against Obamacare? And you know what? When they had the chance, no, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But when they need to get elected, they say this stuff. And that just gets into the last thing that just recently happened.
Well, and I want to get to that in a minute, but you said 12 years. So I just want to say, first of all, that's long enough. I wanted you to run for re-election because I know how you see things, but at the same time, what a sacrifice to go down there the way you have, and serve, and does anybody really want to say, well, you've given 10, 12 years, over a decade of your life, and you need to give more. I mean, I wish we had folks who were like you that would step up and run, and give a little time.
Well, we
themselves.
have, and we've elected them, and unfortunately, Paul, they go down there and do the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've been a part of. When I came in, there were 75 Democrats in the House, 25 Republicans, and so we started working on some things that tried to change it and stuff. And what's going to happen is there's going to have to be a change in the leadership down there, and this misleading, deceiving governor has got to go. There's some people that once they get to he's deceived now, they give him a chance, and they're like, well, Brian, I'm like, I know the Hutchisons. I know how their game they play. They all, once they get into office, and then once they leave office, guess what? They're going and getting a check and being a lobbyist or something. They are they typify what's wrong with our public service.
So
it's like this public is there to serve them.
Yeah.
And like I said, once they leave office, they're going to become a lobbyist, or they're going to do something to get a check. If not while they're in office, possibly.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is, when they come in, it's like, oh, well, give Asa a chance, give everything a chance. Well, you do, and then we're going to have SB 96 that's going to end Medicaid expansion. Remember that?
Yep.
Didn't happen. It took Medicaid expansion to steroids.
Yep. Gave it new life.
And so, that's like I said, that's frustrating down there. And then you see the things that, just like I've been speaking out over the years about some of the things that's going on. What the heck's going on here? Is there something going on? And it comes out Michael Lamoureux's getting a check, Gilbert Baker, Jake Files, and then still no action down there of trying to correct anything. And then
can I ask one?
And I'm not so sure Asa Hutchinson doesn't need to have questions about possible pay-to-play stuff.
Can I ask you a question? We're talking with Senator Brian King. One more question about the process and your service, your time down.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. You can give us a phone call if you'd like. The number 870-275-9799. So glad that you're with us. Yesterday, I guess, began the beginning of a 2-day meeting process down at the Marble Palace where the task force on tax relief, if you can believe that it'll be relief, met. So we had Josh Waters on from Political Strategies to give us an update because he was there on the ground yesterday. We have him back. The meetings have concluded. People are headed home. Josh, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. So, to kind of give our listeners a recap, if they missed last episode when you were on, you said that the first day of testimony was from other legislators from Indiana, North Carolina, and they were actually advocating for, less potential less money going to the government, lowering taxes and that sort of thing. It sounded like it was really good. You seem to be pretty favorable to that. What about today when the consultant, Randy Bauer, who we've paid $300,000 or his company, and of course, he's kind of he's a liberal, lifelong Democrat. It was his turn to give his testimony. So what happened today at the task force meeting?
Yeah, like you said, yesterday was, okay, these are conservative Republicans. That was one of the legislators, how he described himself. And these are how they've cut taxes and eliminated taxes such as the inventory tax or the franchise tax. And this is what's happened. They've gone up the ranks. Their state has improved economically, and there's more economic freedom in those states. And so that's what we heard yesterday. Well, it was kind of more of what we've heard from Mr. Bauer and the consultants, just a lot of information. And to be honest, Paul, it was a lot of, of ideas I personally wouldn't want legislators to be thinking about, things like tax increment financing, eliminating exemption property tax for churches or charitable organizations.
Wow.
I don't want the legislator hearing ideas of ways to raise revenue. I want them to focus on ways to cut spending and then cut rates.
So let me stop you there. You're saying that the Randy Bauer was talking about eliminating the property tax exemption on churches. That's what you're saying.
That was part of the presentation.
Wow. Josh, you're breaking up a little bit, sir.
Can you hear me, Paul?
Yeah. I'm sorry. You were breaking up just a little bit, so we missed the first part of what you were trying to say. We can't hear him. Hey, Joe, will you try to get him back on the line? See if we can't get a clear connection. I don't know where he's calling from. I mean, I'm assuming he's calling from somewhere in the I-40 corridor. So that would be. Sometimes it can get bad reception that way. So it depends. Folks, the sound off on Facebook, by the way. But that right there, we'll get him back on the line. But that alone is pretty wild if you think about, like, I know they're talking about getting rid of exemptions, but you're telling me we are so desperate for revenue and more government growth, or let's say revenue neutral is what they would say, that we're going to end the deduction for churches and nonprofits. We have Josh Waters back on the line. So I can't believe that was part of the Josh, the recommendations or the testimony. Tell us a little bit more. You said that there was something else about a property tax. I didn't quite recognize that phrase that you said.
Yeah, so there was this. It was kind of brief, and most people probably wouldn't have recognized it, but it was tax increment financing, and that initially really grabbed my attention. I'm like, tax increment financing. I think I've read about this. I've maybe even written about this, and so I immediately went to conduitforcommerce.org, and if you go there under the crony capitalism tab, the introductory paragraphs talk about tax increment financing as a tool to promote crony capitalism. Essentially, it's rebates or total exemptions on property taxes, those kind of a thing, for these special districts. So you get recognized as a district, and you get these rebates or credits or however they structure it. And then a lot of times they can turn around and sell the tax credits to their other business or offset taxes they owe other places. And there's just been, a lot of examples of very egregious abuse of this, and whether or not they produce economic development is a whole other question. But that type of crony capitalism, I just hope our state doesn't look to that as a model to pursue.
Yeah, that was interesting. I also know tax increment financing, this idea concerning property taxes, it's not just opposed, by Conduit for Commerce, but also a national organization like the Cato Institute. They've got some negative stuff to say about it as well. I was able to listen into a few live streams this morning of Randy Bauer's testimony. Again, a lifelong Democrat that we've hired to come in and advise a bunch of Republicans on what tax policy is. One of the things he said when he was talking about property taxes was that bond rating agencies really like property taxes because it's a stable source of revenue in an economic downturn. Did you hear that part?
Yeah, it's, again, unfortunately, a way we can – it was basically how can we, find ways to raise revenue or other ways to make sure we can increase the revenue going forward without cutting taxes or spending elsewhere. And that's, I think, maybe plays into that. And like we talked about, you talked about last week, Paul, bonds are equals future tax increases. And, they do want to look at that. They want to know, okay, if property taxes are high or the rates are high, those are a somewhat reliable source of income to the state rather than income taxes or sales taxes that fluctuate based on the economy. But people, you owe your property tax regardless if you got the money or not. If you made money or not this year, the bill comes due. And so I think that was one focus, though. Maybe a positive spin out of it was, okay, we understand that property taxes are maybe, if we raise those are the most politically toxic because, typically the people who own a lot of property, whether or not they can pay it, that's always a question. So, it's kind of an unfair type of thing. Okay, here's your tax bill you get a couple times a year, property tax or however it's sent out, and then whether or not they can pay it, they don't really care, whereas the sales tax and income tax is based on how the economy is doing, either your personal consumption or your personal production.
Was there any consensus? Because, it sounds like it was a different feel. The meeting yesterday, again, was about, seemed to be actual tax cut ideas and what other states have done. The meeting today, more about revenue neutral which is, not really about shrinking government and then giving more money back to the people. It's more about making sure that government has the exact same amount of money, at least, as it's getting now, and just kind of shifting everything around. The presentation as a whole, though, Randy Bauer, I've covered this. You can go see his tweets. But what were the thoughts? How was the performance of the presentation?
Well, there were at least two instances that I can remember that were just pointed out. We don't know if there's more. There's two instances, Paul, today where the amount of revenue that was collected from a specific tax is the inventory tax. That was actually corrected by a presenter later on. And then a specific amendment that was referenced in one of the slides on the presentation was also corrected. I think that was kind of a basic amendment on property tax generally, about the millage rate and stuff. And so that was kind of, I think a little alarming to some people. I'll just tell you this, Paul, someone who was sitting in front of me when we broke for lunch, she was frustrated, got up and said, so much misinformation,
Wow.
And that's not my words. That's not, maybe they're more of an expert on the property tax issue. But that was what I overheard from the person sitting in front of me after the presentation from this morning.
So we've paid this guy $300,000. And they're presenting to the task force committee, and they're presenting numbers that are not accurate. They're being called out. These numbers are being called out as being incorrect, and people are correcting the record. And then it's obviously so obvious, I know that was redundant, that the audience is saying, wow, so much misinformation. So that was kind of the vibe that you were feeling was, hey, maybe we're not getting the whole truth here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say with other specifics. I think the person sitting in front of me had a lot more expertise. And to be fair, I think Randy Bauer said, okay, there's more people with more expertise in this. But, at the end of the day, like you said, if we're paying someone $300,000, I hope they're either finding the experts to bring in as part of that contract or something. But one positive thing, Paul, I think today that maybe we can focus on was actually recommendations from Conduit for Commerce about eliminating the franchise tax and eliminating the inventory tax. There is actually discussion on that, and if we eliminated that, how much would that cost? So, I'd like to hear more of that going forward, ways we can eliminate taxes. And I think Representative Jeff Williams actually sent out a tweet or Facebook post today about, yes, we do need to eliminate these. So
wow, you mean
that was one positive thing coming.
The corporate tax, you're saying, they talked about eliminating it.
So, the corporate franchise tax.
Okay.
So a business in Arkansas, for the benefit of doing business in Arkansas, for LLCs, it's $150 they have to send into the state every year just for simply existing. And then the inventory tax is a property tax on the inventory of a business. So when you think of Amazon or Walmart, these large companies with these distribution centers, they're never going to, or I would doubt they would ever want to be located in a state with high inventory taxes. And it's kind of a double taxation kind of thing too as well. So those were two taxes that Conduit for Commerce has specifically said we should eliminate to be more competitive, have more job growth, economic growth. And so I hope the task force focuses on that and ways we can eliminate that going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, it's good that you're there on the ground, and you can kind of see what would be a positive idea, what would be a negative idea. And so overall, you've now been to 2 days of meetings. Again, the recommendation, a preliminary recommendation is supposed to be out by the end of this month. I know, it's only been a day or an extra meeting, but are there you have any ideas on what's going to be in those recommendations?
I don't, and I was a little confused today. I haven't reached out. I need to reach out probably, and then I was a little confused on who exactly would be writing this recommendation. Would it be the chairman? Would it be the task force collaboratively? Would it be the tax consultant? I think that was a little unclear leaving today. I don't know if that's been discussed, but hopefully we can get some clarification and get back to you. on that, Paul.
I hope it's not the consultant. I mean, if it's the consultant,
yeah.
he's just going to write. They're going to write whatever they're told to write because they're being paid to write it. So, anyway, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So we will see. They have a few more weeks.
Josh Waters from Political Strategies. We appreciate it, sir. As always, be safe on your travels, and Merry Christmas to you.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Merry Christmas.
All righty, folks. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much for being with us. I'd like to welcome back to the program State Representative Jim Dotson is with us from District 93. That's the Bentonville area. Jim, welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. So we're doing these segments. We did a few yesterday. Where we're trying to just, invite Arkansas politicos on and let them explain to us what Christmas means to them. So, State Representative Jim Dotson, what does Christmas mean to you?
Well, the number one thing is obviously the birth of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. So, celebration of his birthday, and on a more personal level with family, friends, celebrating, getting together for the holidays, and some time to unplug, unwind, and celebrate the birth of Christ together as a family.
Yeah, and I think, I think that certainly echoes the way a lot of Arkansans feel. the time with the family actually is really good to take a moment and be grateful for all of that. Do you ever get tired of the commercialization of Christmas? You mentioned the birth of Jesus. Do you ever get tired of how maybe we don't focus as much on the religious significance of the holiday?
Well, I think, it's probably, you can get overwhelmed and bombarded with it as far as the commercialization, retail, and wanting to give gifts and give things, all of the receiving gifts and everything, as a kid.
Yeah.
Always look forward to the Christmas presents more than I look forward to listening to the Christmas story, and couldn't wait for that to be finished so we could get to opening the Christmas presents.
I think we are all guilty of that. If we're honest, every one of us, I think, is guilty of that at some point, right?
That's just human nature. And so, and now as an adult, there's a flip side of that from the standpoint of wanting to give the gifts and the excitement that are in your kids' eyes as they open that up. So, you want to rush through to get to that point as well. But I think there's a lot less rush to get to it as far as opening the gifts, and a little bit more willingness to stop and take that time and really enjoy letting the kids know what the reason for the season is, that it is Jesus' birthday, and we get gifts on Jesus' birthday. This is cool, but the reality of it is it's God's gift of salvation to all of mankind, and that's the reason we're celebrating Jesus' birth. So, that's probably the number one meaning. Besides eating too much food.
Yeah, it just goes from there.
And just the time to unplug, kind of unwind, knowing that everything is stopped. You're not missing anything. It's one time a year where my phone doesn't ring and a whole bunch of emails aren't stacking up that I'm falling behind on, and everybody stops because everybody's celebrating the birth of Christ. And I think that's regardless of the various religions that are celebrated all over the country. Everybody recognizes that during this season, and particularly in Christmas itself, everything shuts down in America because of the honor of the birth of Christ. There's only 2 days in America that happens. That's the birth of Christ and also Easter, the resurrection of Christ. So that's a pretty cool thing in America.
Yeah, it really is. State Representative Jim Dotson on what Christmas means to you. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
All righty.
Have a good day.
Yes, sir.
Thank
you too. State Representative Jim Dotson, everybody. Coming up at the top of the next hour, we'll be asking Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin that same question, what Christmas means to him, coming up around 4:52. Is that right on the board? Yeah, it's the top of the next hour. Oh, okay, sorry, not top of the next hour. Sorry. It kind of sort of top of the next hour. Sort of. It's higher than we are now on the hour. No, Tim Griffin will be on at 4:52. We'll be asking him that same question. And then at 5:52, we'll be asking State Representative Josh Miller what Christmas means to him today. And so we're trying to line these up, fill these up. So if you're a state legislator and you hadn't been asked yet, be expecting my call. And coming up here, right as soon as we come back from this break, we're up against a hard break. At the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking with Patriots of Act 746. Mr. Dan Borum will be with us. We're going to talk a little bit about some tragic events that have happened since the last time we had him on the show, as well as I got a feeling we're going to get into Christmas with him as well. I just have this feeling. Folks, don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. It's brought to you by Conduit Media and the Liberty Machine. Rolling on next.
welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
There. So when you start out, you're a House member, and the Republicans are a minority. They're an up-and-coming party. They're trying to wrestle legislative control away from the Democrats. And, there was probably a lot more unity than there is now, or at least, we have common goals. These are our common goals. And now that the Republican Party is in power, it doesn't seem like we have those common goals of limiting government. And so, is that what you signed up for? Obviously, it's not.
Yeah, it's about doing what you say to tell people back home when you get elected. Okay, how many Arkansas legislators campaigned to end Medicaid expansion in Arkansas? And then go down there and do the opposite. And once they get caught up in it, and so that's what happens. But I've been around in politics enough in 2006 when the Republicans got thrown out of Congress. You know what they did? Their base left them. They said, you know what, we got you elected, and they're doing the same thing. I mean, Bob Ballinger's out there. He was on Ellswick, and I'll be on Ellswick tomorrow, and I'll address a little bit of that, where he says, just quit criticizing us. Just, let's just keep, just don't be criticizing us. Let's have unity. Let's have this. This is about saying, no, you were supposed to do what you said you were going to do, and they haven't done it.
Yep.
And
exactly
they do the opposite of it. And eventually, guess what? You get thrown back out of power. And what happened is this next midterm election, outside of this tax cut deal up there, that you're going to see things have in D.C., despite what Trump's tried to do, is continue to stay the same. Asa Hutchinson's even worse in that, if you look at the bills on the crime issue, that him and Jeremy Hutchison, who's the biggest failure ever as Senate Judiciary Chairman. I mean, he was supposed to be the go-to guy to address our prison population and crime and everything like that. Well, guess what? It's got worse. But he's still in there. And Asa Hutchinson still comes out and says, he's got this or that. And he seems to be more shoving things off on federal law enforcement instead of the state. But they're doing some things. But the reality is, what are you doing to our law enforcement when you've sit there and done Medicaid expansion and everything else and all this, and spent billions more in Medicaid, and you've ignored our crime situation to the point that it's literally, Paul, this is just it. We got to take millions of dollars to do that. But we're off on another deal. But I kind of want to talk about this last.
Yeah, I do too. But what you're saying is right. Is right up. I mean, it's
right up this same alley of now.
The everything the stuff that a vast majority of us agree. This is the government's responsibility to keep criminals behind bars and carry out their full sentences. We're giving up on that. Yeah, and because we're spending on other priorities. So let's talk about that. The headline: the state cut revenue forecast by. All right. Merry Christmas, Arkansas. Welcome back to the program today. Thank you so much for being with us. This next portion of the program is brought to you by the great Patriots of Act 746. They are on a mission to educate Arkansans about the Second Amendment and Act 746 of Arkansas and the constitutional carry realities that it has really given to us. The law, Act 746, allows for open, concealed, constitutional carry, a right to protect yourself. And they've got a great Facebook page, Patriots of Act 746. More than 11,000 people on it. It's very, very popular, a bunch of educated folks. And joining us now to talk more about that, we got, once again on the program, Mr. Dan Borm is with us from Patriots of Act 746. Dan, good to talk to you again.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul, from the Boston Mountains. It's a beautiful day.
It is.
I tell you what, it's starting to feel a lot like Christmas up here in the mountains.
I bet. I mean, it's starting to feel like that everywhere. I was just on the Facebook post, and I was saying that, this is my favorite time of year. I mean, it always has been, it always will be, and I can't even fathom not getting as excited about the Christmas season. I know some people don't, but I mean, I certainly do. So, Dan, do you have big plans for Christmas?
We generally don't make just huge plans, but Christmas for me, it takes me a while to get into the quote Christmas spirit. But Christmas for me is being with family. My daughters are pretty much grown now, and yes, they still love Christmas, but now it's my two grandsons that I really enjoy watching, and to see their eyes twinkling and sparkling because of Christmas time. But, I just love being with family. When my side of the family, when we all get together, we have a good feast together. We just enjoy fellowship with one another. We play music, we sing Christmas songs, and we just have a good time.
Well, I want to.
But
go ahead. Yeah, no, I want to talk to you about more what Christmas means to you here just a little bit, later in this segment. But there's been a few things that have happened since we last had you on.
Right.
We were talking about carrying guns, in a church building the last time, and there had just been a church shooting in Tennessee, and it didn't get a lot of coverage. And we were talking about that. Arkansas has a law that gives churches the freedom to set their own policy. And then after we had you on, there was the terrible tragedy, many more casualties down in Texas. And since then, the issue really catapulted. You had Senator Brian King was mentioned on Fox News about his law to give Arkansas churches the right to set their own policy. And you yourself are a pastor, and so I'm just wondering if that frenzy, made its way back to you.
The frenzy did make its way back to even the church that I pastor. We're a small congregation, but you look at that church down in Texas, that is a rural Southern Baptist church. Those people, my heart breaks for them right now. Here it is, Christmas time, and those people are still suffering. They're grieving terribly, and it should have never happened. The thing is, yes, it came back even into our church, and what we did, we just sat down as a church, and we discussed what we were going to do. And basically, we just have a rotation of men who decided that they're going to rotate each Sunday to sit in the foyer area, watch the doors, and just give a little extra protection in that area. And then the policy in our church is it's between you and God. If you want to carry a weapon, that's between you and God. That's your choice. There is no set policy as to who's going to carry and who cannot carry. If you so desire to carry, you can. If you would rather not, you don't have to. That's your choice. And that is the thing. And look at the churches through Arkansas. Each denomination, the way that they take care of their business, they all do it just a little bit differently. And so whether there's a board that makes these decisions in the church that you attend, the thing is, people need to be able to protect themselves, whether they're at home or whether they're at church. Now, there's been a lot of churches, since this has happened, they have been in contact with their local city police, their local sheriff's department, They have asked officers to come to their church and to speak to them concerning an active shooter, how to handle that, what they should do, policies maybe that they should put in place, and that's great. If the churches desire to do that, to get some extra information, that's a wonderful thing. But the idea, one thing, and I even saw I saw the outline of one where the law enforcement was teaching the people to retreat and to take cover, to evacuate. And I'm thinking, okay, in a very small church like I attend, the building is small. If everyone tries to evacuate, we don't have really a big back door. We have a very small door toward the front of the auditorium, and everybody just piles up in there like sardines. You're just going to make it extremely easy for the shooter to wipe everyone out. And then they said, scream real loud and throw your hymnal at him. And I'm like,
now,
are
hang
you
on.
kidding me?
This was done where? This is law enforcement training on how to, what, just being fish in a barrel?
Yes, it was. This
wow.
happened in Crawford County. I saw it myself on, Mr. Wayne Helm sent me the outline, and they said use force as a last resort.
Hang on, law enforcement in Crawford County were telling parishioners to throw hymnals.
That's right. And look at a lot of the large churches. They don't even use hymnals anymore. They use, a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
and the words are up on the big screen. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, and they said, having a weapon is just going to draw attention to you. I said, well, it's probably going to draw attention to me because I'm going to be pulling the trigger. But, is throwing a hymnal at the man and screaming not going to draw attention to you?
Yeah, and some of these
people,
really
some of these,
and some of these deranged people. I mean, if you know anything about these psychotic individuals that end up doing mass shootings like this, running around and being terrorized and screaming sometimes can actually, that's exactly kind of what they want, to accomplish. Yeah. And so it's been said before, the only thing that ends whatever fantasy or anger or aggression that this person is acting out is sending bullets back in his direction. And so I'm so glad that in Arkansas, we do have the freedom as individual congregations to set your own policy about how you want to secure, the congregation. I just think the freedom is the best policy there.
Absolutely, and I'm very thankful that even when I was looking back at Senate Bill 71 in the 89th General Assembly, that the Church Protection Act that was passed in February of 2013, that's even built upon that, the government really just has absolutely no business determining what churches can do concerning security. And I'm really thankful now that it's been passed that each church can design their own policy and decide what they're going to do concerning security. Mm-hmm. But as for the church that I pastor, everyone knows if they want to carry, they can carry, and they don't have to get permission from anyone else. That's between them and God.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, well, so Dan Borum, like you said, it is Christmas time. Now, you are a pastor, okay?
Absolutely.
So, do you have any do you have any favorite Christmas sermons that you've delivered, or go-tos? Obviously, you keep it to the text of the story of the birth of Christ, but do you have any favorites where maybe you use other text or anything like that, other scriptures?
I guess my all-time favorite is out of the Gospel of Luke concerning when Gabriel, the messenger angel Gabriel, came to Mary. Mary wasn't very old. She was just a teenage girl. And what people have to consider, Gabriel did not go around and tell everyone else what was going on. Now, think about before her and Joseph, before they culminated the marriage. before they came together to become as one, she was already showing that she was pregnant. It even had him messed up until Gabriel came and explained to him what was going on. Now, consider the talk that's going on around her and what people are saying. Her faith in what God said was extraordinary. And her husband's faith, Joseph, to take her and to take her as a wife, to not divorce her according to the law of Moses, was also an extraordinary act of faith on his part. And that's what I love for people to see, is the faith of these two people to obey God and to be willing to serve God regardless of what their social status may be because of it. I love that.
Wow. Yeah, that is exactly – you don't hear a lot about that.
No, you do not.
Gosh, yeah, that is really, really good because, I mean – I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, I am glad that Gabriel did at least provide some explanation to Joseph.
Absolutely. But he was concerning to put her – he was already thinking that he was going to put her away. Yeah. Joseph was mad. His feelings was hurt. And, you know, when Gabriel tells Mary that you are praised among women, that the word praised, if I remember right, is an adjective. And it means you are a praised one among women. And what that means is her position of being the one to bear the Messiah was a praised position among the women of Israel. They didn't know that she was bearing the Messiah. It was the position of bearing the Messiah that was a praised position.
Yeah, and there's so much to that, the fact that, you know, she was looked down upon, and yet, you know, just so opposite, and how, you know, God just, you know, makes fools out of the wise, and you know what I'm saying, and that is so good. That's really good. So Dan, in general, I'll give you the last word here. We're about out of time. Just Christmas, you know, I know you mentioned family and everything, but I'll give you more time. What does Christmas mean to you?
Well, we know that the United States is a melting pot of culture and traditions when it comes to Christmas. In fact, this country at one time didn't even celebrate Christmas. But since man has set it aside to celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior, I love to focus upon that and what the birth of our Lord and Savior means, and the fact that I want people to realize he is not still a baby in the manger. Yes, we celebrate his birth, and we smile, and we're touched by the birth and the baby Jesus. But the point that I love to drive and what I love to reflect upon at Christmas time with my family is that baby was nailed to the cross as a man at 33 and a half years old, and nailed your sins and my sins to the cross so that we can have eternal life. That's what I love to think upon and reflect upon when it comes to Christmas, is the gift that God gave us through his son, Jesus Christ, Paul.
Dan Borum, I appreciate you being on the program. Patriots Vac 746. You have a Merry Christmas, Dan.
Merry Christmas to you, Paul, and hope you have a Happy New Year, brother.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. All right, be safe. Folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin will be joining us. Don't go anywhere.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who is deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with a Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Rights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Coming back in here, this is Bing Crosby. I think we got a lot of him in the queue for today. Welcome back to the program. In continuing with our series that we started yesterday, but we've interviewed a bunch of people, seems like already, about what Christmas means to you. We have Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin is on the line. Tim, welcome back, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Just go ahead. The floor is yours. What does Christmas mean to you?
Well, the first thing, I've been thinking a lot about this since you raised the question, and the obvious is that it is ultimately about the birth of Christ and Christ coming down to earth. But let me back up for a second. I've been thinking about Christmas memories, and the first thing I will say is that Christmas, when you think back, I'm 49, so I think back over all the years of my life. Some of the most clear memories that sort of stand out are the ones around the Christmas time, the Christmas time of year. So the first thing I would say is Christmas memories are sharper in my mind in many cases, and some of that may be because there's always something unique about it that you can remember, whether it was where you were or something that occurred, or maybe a special gift when you were young or something like that. So first I'll just say that there is something separate from the rest of the year about what you experience during this time of year, particularly as a young person, right? And so having said that, a lot of my Christmas, particularly at 49, is focused on ensuring that my kids are understanding what it's really all about. And that's in today's society, that's not easy, right? Because they're bombarded with commercial after commercial. And I want them to have a wonderful Christmas with gifts and all the traditions. But I work hard with my wife to weave into that the real meaning, the Christian meaning. And so, some of the things that, that I make sure that we do is we go to a candlelight service at our church. That is usually the Christmas Eve service. And that is, I like going. It's a wonderful service, but it's also about making certain that they include in the Christmas celebration, particularly right around the day, the Christian element of it all, right? And I just have to, you have to remind kids all the time. Now, remember, this is about giving, not receiving, because that's not a natural thing for any of us. Mm. You want the new phone, you want your new this, you want the new that, they want the new toy. And so it's very important that I include them in events and goings-on that revolve around giving and not taking. But I will say this too: it's about communicating to your kids that, and to your family, that the sort of oneness that you have when you're all around, whether it be watching traditional, the movies that come on every year, whether it be Drummer Boy, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, whatever, that family time is so important. And we work really hard to preserve that. And so I work really hard, and it's tough for me, to say no to things as we get close to Christmas, to say no to things that would take me away from being with them. And I try to do that as much as I can the week after Christmas as well, because we're go all the time. And I think it's important to say, hey, at the end of the day, Christ and our family, that's what we've got. And that's what this yes. time of year is particularly about. And if you don't fight for that, it won't automatically happen. I could say yes to a bunch of stuff, drive here, drive there, go to this event, go do that, where almost up to Christmas Day probably. And I have to fight to say, no, okay, this is special time. And when I look back on my childhood, those times with my parents, whether it's at my grandma's house or whatever, those times stand out. So I guess that's sort of broadly what it means to me.
We got about
one more.
Yeah, we got about 1 minute left. So
one more quick thing. So when my daughter, when I just had one kid, my daughter was 1 year old or 2 years old, we were still going down to my wife's parents' house in Camden to have Christmas. And I drew the line in the sand. I said, okay, Mary Catherine's starting to grow up a little bit. I want to see her come down the stairs on Christmas morning, and I want her to wake up at her house where Santa has visited, and I want her to identify with being at home on Christmas morning. So from then on, we just drew the line in the sand and said, we're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Christmas will be at our house. We may be somewhere else Christmas Eve or whatever, but Christmas morning is at our house. It's a special time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of families that have to draw that line as well. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, Merry Christmas to you, sir. You have a great Christmas. Thanks for coming on. Folks, we got to take a break. We got one more hour coming your way next. Special thanks to all of the guests this hour. Back in just a moment.
Josh, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
$22.1 million. Governor Hutchinson says, though, that we're not going to cut the state's projected budget, even though we're having to cut the revenue forecast.
Yeah.
That seems weird. I want to talk about specifically something he said about we're going, quote, as an additional conservative tool to manage the budget, we will present to the General Assembly a fiscal 2019 budget that will reduce spending. This will provide sufficient cushion in the event there is an unanticipated economic news that changes the revenue picture next year, end quote. What? And then the paper goes on to point out that he gives no specifics about what the conservative tool would be. What do you make of this?
Well, first off, Governor Hutchinson, once again, misleading and deceiving people. This is the same guy, the all-time record spendingest governor in Arkansas history, all-time record spendingest governor in Medicaid. Okay, this is the same guy when he was not going to make projections and did a cut that said, hang on a minute, I've got too much communication going on here.
That's all right.
But this is the same guy that said, I don't have a spending problem. Why does he need a conservative tool for a guy that doesn't have a spending problem? I don't know that he needs to reduce spending. Why does he need another tool? But he was the one that said, it's just the taxpayers didn't send me enough money. Mm-hmm. Okay? But what Governor Hutchinson's really saying is he doesn't need a conservative tool. He needs conservative fools. He needs to fool the people again. He has all the tools are available for this. You have a Category A, a Category B. You do this, you fund A. Then if you have the money, then you fund B. Then you have these others. And so the other tool he has, which he totally ignores or, schemed around, was the 75 vote threshold on appropriation bills. Mm-hmm. You know what? Him and Bart Hester and Jim Hendren and them, if do you respect the Constitution or you don't? Okay? And you can't say you respect the Constitution when all you do is come up with some lawyer legal scheme to get around it, and they did.
Yep, that's exactly right. So you're saying, he already has a tool to reduce spending, and it's called the Arkansas Constitution, and he did
and your own voting and your own budget mechanisms. There is all kinds of tools that it's already there. He doesn't need, what he needs is conservative fools that he can continue to fool people, because see, our budget years are on July 1st to June, the end of June the next year. Okay, so he goes into an election year, and I saw Mike Beebe do the same thing. He goes into election year, and he goes in this budget session, and he's going to implement this conservative tool for the next time. Well, he's only got about 4 months or 5 months until the election. And then after that, he's got another 4 years. So this is just another gimmick that he's going to use for the next budget session. The problem is he keeps spending too much. And where's most of the spending? Medicaid. And who's responsible for all the spending and the problem we're in? Asa Hutchinson and the leadership down there, and everybody else that just falls in line with them.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. And I will say this. I think his comments about trying, using the buzzword, we're going to put an additional conservative tool to try to reduce spending.
Yes,
I
yes,
think
he is.
I think this is him saying, hey, listen, I know that the base out there has gotten word that I've increased spending $130 million, $140 million, and $170 million the 3 years I've been here. And I think people are now starting to associate me in the base with being a big spender. So I'm going to start trying, like you said, to use these buzzwords to try to, paint a picture that he is who he's not. And that's how he kind of got elected. I mean, if you go back and look at his campaign commercials, he said he opposed Obamacare. He said he supported the Second Amendment. He said all these things, but we have legislative record now that suggest otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like the last measure that they say is going to take off so many people. And one year, him and Disman go out there, which, why are we, if you want to talk about reducing.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. Just know this, we can't do the program without you listening every single day. And really excited. I'm telling you, I was already, getting in the Christmas spirit, doing the decorations around the house, which my wife has done an amazing job on the inside of the house. I guess a week before Thanksgiving started hanging the lights in the front yard. And then last Friday, and I succeeded because there were these tall little pine, they're like some sort of pine fern. There's 3 of them, and they're really tall. And it took a while for me to figure out how I was going to do that without killing myself. And so then I got that up, and then on Friday I went to I went to the Walmart and, got some more lights, and I decided to do my backyard. And the backyard was a lot easier, but I kind of just went crazy. And so, this is just, I don't know if you've ever put Christmas lights out at night. That's what I did. Friday after I got off the show, I went and I worked, several hours and everything else. And then my Christmas spirit was it kind of took a hit. The other night, I'm sitting there in my house, and there's a pretty bad rainstorm that's coming through. And a rainstorm comes through, and I think to myself, the wind's blowing hard, and I think to myself, maybe I should go out there and just turn off the Christmas lights. You know what I mean? Just to make sure that nothing's, because I have them taped up, so, not all of them, but, I just want to make sure everything's fine. And about that time, as soon as I thought that, I hear a click, and then the lights in the front yard go out, and then the lights in the backyard go out, and they're on 2 separate things, and I'm just like, wow, that's really frustrating. My Christmas creation may be completely destroyed. I'm not an electrician. I don't know what electricity does. So I go to the circuit breaker. Nothing's tripped. Our power's still on. I can't figure out what's going on. And then long story short, I eventually figured it out. There was those bathroom outlets that actually tripped because there probably was water that, electricity went on a path it wasn't supposed to. And so I just had to figure out which bathroom outlets it was that you go push the little reset button, and then everything's fine and everything else. But what has gotten me, I say all that to say this, what has gotten me into the Christmas spirit even more is the fact that we have started doing these little segments with legislators on what Christmas means to them. And to hear it, we started it with Representative Kim Hendren yesterday, and he led with a verse out of chapter 1 of John, and then we talked to already today we've talked to Jim Dotson, we've talked to Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. Later in this hour, we're going to be talking with State Representative Josh Miller on the subject. Tomorrow, we've got more people doing this, and to hear everyone's perspective. And, of course, I think most everyone is grounded in, the birth of Jesus Christ as being the reason. That's the meaning of Christmas. But to hear people put it in their own words, to hear people quote Scripture, it's just very refreshing. It's extremely refreshing. GFCI. That's right. GFCI outlets. I've got a text message, somebody telling me. Yeah, it was a nightmare. But everything's fine now. Everything's golden. Folks, today was on the national front, on the international front, it was a day to mark. And I know we focus on state issues for the most part, but something tells me this is very significant. December the 6th, 2017, it's now going to be, pretty soon the beginning of December the 7th. 2017, in the rest of the world, Donald Trump recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the nation of Israel, making moves to eventually take the embassy in Tripoli and move it, not Tripoli, Tel Aviv, and move it to Jerusalem. Big news, huge news. He said it on the campaign trail. Many people didn't believe him because other presidents before him had said it on the campaign trail. And I think Donald Trump, say what you want to, Donald Trump, I think, can now make the argument he may very well be the most pro-Israel president ever. Maybe second next to Harry Truman, who officially recognized Israel as a new nation after World War II. But this is a big deal, and it may set the Arab world on fire. But listen to his comments, because they make an incredible amount of sense. Listen to this.
Thank you. When I came into office, I promised to look at the world's challenges with open eyes and very fresh thinking. We cannot solve our problems by making the same failed assumptions and repeating the same failed strategies of the past. Old challenges demand new approaches. My announcement today marks the beginning of a new approach to conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. In 1995, Congress adopted the Jerusalem Embassy Act, urging the federal government to relocate the American embassy to Jerusalem and to recognize that that city, and so importantly, is Israel's capital. This act passed Congress by an overwhelming bipartisan majority and was reaffirmed by a unanimous vote of the Senate only 6 months ago. Yet for over 20 years, every previous American president has exercised the law's waiver, refusing to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem or to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital city. Presidents issued these waivers under the belief that delaying the recognition of Jerusalem would advance the cause of peace. Some say they lacked courage, but they made their best judgment based on facts as they understood them at the time. Nevertheless, the record is in. After more than 2 decades of waivers, we are no closer to a lasting peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result. Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Huge. Big deal.
While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering. I've judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is a long overdue step to advance the peace process and to work towards a lasting agreement. Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Acknowledging this is a fact is a necessary condition for achieving peace. It was 70 years ago that the United States, under President Truman, recognized the State of Israel. Ever since then, Israel has made its capital in the city of Jerusalem, the capital the Jewish people established in ancient times. Today, Jerusalem is the seat of the modern Israeli government. It is the home of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, as well as the Israeli Supreme Court. It is the location of the official residence of the Prime Minister and the President.
It was like common sense.
It is the headquarters
So why hasn't it
of
been?
many government ministries. For decades, visiting American presidents, secretaries of state, and military leaders have met their Israeli counterparts in Jerusalem, as I did on my trip to Israel earlier this year. Jerusalem is not just the heart of three great religions, but it is now also the heart of one of the most successful democracies in the world. Over the past 7 decades, the Israeli people have built a country where Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and people of all faiths are free to live and worship according to their conscience and according to their beliefs.
I mean, it's a Western democracy. It's
Jerusalem is today,
it's like us Gilead.
and must remain, a place where Jews pray at the Western Wall, where Christians walk the stations of the cross, and where Muslims worship at Al-Aqsa Mosque. However, through all of these years, presidents representing the United States have declined to officially recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. In fact, we have declined to acknowledge any Israeli capital at all. But today we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do. It's something that has to be done. That is why, consistent with the Jerusalem Embassy Act, I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
All right, stop.
This
This was a huge day. That was a lengthy audio clip, yes, but you needed to hear it because this is a big deal, in my opinion. This is something that's been avoided for a long time, and the reason it's been avoided, I think, just generally, is because they say, well, we're not going to have peace if we acknowledge this, then we won't ever have peace with the Palestinians. And Donald Trump is saying, nope, listen, we still want peace with the Palestinians. We still want peace, but we're going to acknowledge the fact that under Israeli democracy, okay, human rights are protected. You have people of all faiths that are not prohibited of exercising their religion in the city of Jerusalem, Muslims, Christians, Jews. And we're going to acknowledge that their government is there, their Supreme Court, their legislature, everything else is there. The Prime Minister, that's where their government is. I mean, can you imagine if some other country told us that, they just ignored the fact? They were like, yeah, Washington, D.C., that we're not going to recognize. That's not the capital. We're just going to say it's Baltimore. That's Baltimore. That's the capital. That wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You hear them talk about their sovereignty. They're a sovereign nation, and honestly, if a sovereign nation is going to go into peace talks, I mean, would you want to go into peace talks if you're Israel when the people that are trying to arbitrate this whole thing can't even get your capital city correctly? No, I wouldn't. It's all about walking on eggshells, and Donald Trump saying, no, we're just going to put all the cards on the table. We're not going to walk on eggshells. We're going to say, hey, Jerusalem's the capital. Let's move forward. You want to negotiate? Let's move forward from the fact that this is the capital city of Israel, Jerusalem. And notice he said it's from ancient times. Now, in the campaign, you know what he said? He said it's the eternal capital of Israel. I'm telling you, I bet you he went against every advisor he had. I bet Donald Trump went against every advisor he had, telling him, do not do this. And he did it anyway. So many presidents promised this to get elected. To be able to claim that they are pro-Israel, and yet they don't deliver. Donald Trump delivers. It's going to drive people nuts. It's going to drive the mainstream media nuts. You will now see mainstream media people bashing Israel. That's now what's going to start to happen. The people on the left are going to start to bash Israel. It's going to happen over and over and over again. And it'll be very interesting to see what comes of that. We have to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. Governments do not make ideals, but ideals make governments. This is both historically and logically true. Of course, the government can help to sustain ideals and create institutions through which they can better be observed, but the source of their very nature is in the people. The people have to bear their own responsibilities. There's no method by which that burden can be shifted to the government. It's not the enactment, but the observance of laws that created the character of a nation. President Calvin Coolidge.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, Loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas to you. The reason, real quick, I'm going to go to Joe here. He's got some interesting news. But the reason this announcement about Israel is a big deal is because there are many people, there are many Christian people that believe that Israel, it has been said that Israel is God's timepiece. Like God's, pocket watch, if you will. And there's a ridiculous amount of prophecy in the Old Testament that actually confirms that. It was a matter of fact, the birth that we're about to celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ, which was such a prophetic event in terms of the Old Testament, all the way, really from Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, a lot of the book of Isaiah. But interestingly enough, for every one prophecy of Jesus Christ's first coming, there's more about his second coming. Can't remember the exact ratios. It escapes me right now, but it's a lot more, okay? So that's why this is a big deal to a lot of people out there. When I heard Donald Trump was going to do this, I was like, really? Okay. All right, well, we'll see. Joe, what is your news? We had a caller from an international call.
Yeah, we had a caller from Australia, of all places. He wanted to say, one, that you're doing a good job. He really likes the show.
So Down Under.
Yeah, from Down Under.
What time is it in Australia right now?
I just looked that up. It's like 10:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Right. Well, it's a morning show.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But he also said that it's not just America that has a war on Christmas. It's also happening in Australia as well. That as things are now, the Christmas tree is no longer a Christmas tree. It's a festive tree, if I remember the correct usage of the words or correct words he used. And like Christmas cakes aren't Christmas cakes, they're celebration cakes. And then Islam is also very prominent, or is starting to become more prominent in Australia. And people who follow that faith, they're saying that Christmas lights are offensive to them and they don't want them around.
Not even Christmas lights.
Nope.
Uh-oh. That's like light pollution. Watch out. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is really sad. We talked about this on our Wednesday weekly video about the Red Cross in Belgium trying to outlaw crucifix at their locations. They want the Red Cross, they want to take down the crosses at the Red Cross. And we mentioned in that one article, it was talking about how upset some Belgian people are because it used to be Christmas and now it's a winter holiday, and then there was some other weird phrase that they use as well there now about celebration of something was like a winter pleasure celebration or something. There's some kind of weird.
Oh, it was like I think it was like an open air market for like Christmas gifts and stuff, something like that. It's some sort of market like thing.
Used to have Christmas in it.
Yeah, it was used to. Now it's like pleasure gifts or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's weird. It's weird. So yeah, a lot of people I feel like are breathing a sigh of relief because Donald Trump recognized Christmas, and the war on Christmas is still there, obviously. But anyway, we appreciate the listener from Australia. That's pretty awesome. Folks, you can watch us online, facebook.com/Paul Talk Show, or YouTube, or paulharrell.com. That's Paul, HARRELL.com. When you're there, if you want extra content, click on Get Extra Content. Find out the details.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Spending, and what they do that they don't attack me on is they keep saying, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? First thing you need to do is cap enrollment, period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
First thing, and he opposed that,
Yep.
okay? If you got a bad program, it's growing out of control, all this stuff and everything like that, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to cap it. He opposed it, number one. Number two is you need to go to a less expensive form of Medicaid, and that is just the straight Medicaid, not this insurance scam that Jonathan Dismang loves to give Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then they turn around and hire his best friend. I mean, that right there, rotten, stinks. And then Dismang runs the next bill. The same guy that had every failure and everything wrong with the Medicaid deal, had personal friends get jobs, and then all of a sudden he runs the next Medicaid bill. You know what? If you go along with it, you're a fool, period. And that's what I stood down there and asked Senator Dismang. I said, well, 1 year here you said we take off people off the Medicaid, your Medicaid, more expensive insurance scam Medicaid expansion, we take people off, there's going to be a hole in the budget. How many times we heard that, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Hole in the budget.
Yep.
If we take people off. Well, next year, him and A. Sessions say, no, we're going to save money. Which is it? I mean, the press is not holding them accountable for it. It's all been out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So let me ask you this. We're about out of time. We're talking with Senator Brian King. He has announced that he's not running for re-election. There was a lot of anticipation among folks that would talk to me at the Capitol, and they would say, listen, the FBI has been running around here for several years. There are, coming indictments, that sort of thing. Some people, I was one included, thought that it was going to kind of revolve around the December 4th trial date of, the corruption trial of John Woods. Of course, that has been now postponed. And so I'm just curious, have you heard anything? I mean, there are all these rumors about somebody's going to be indicted, and yet it never seems to happen. It's been going on for way too long, a couple of years now. What are your thoughts on that? And could a massive corruption, a massive revealing of corruption, could that maybe make you change your mind and consider running for re-election?
I don't know. Some of this stuff I'm not going to comment on. What I'm going to say is that you never know. Till the filing period happens. Charlotte Douglas is still out there, and she hadn't decided. If she runs against Ballinger, she'll clean his clock. Ballinger won't. Ballinger has preached one thing and done another. I could go into numerous examples about that. Not only, he has more holes than a screen door. So I'm not worried about him or that. But
and you failed. Yeah, so you didn't endorse him in the reports I read.
No,
and you said
absolutely
Charlotte
not.
Douglas.
He epitomizes. Yeah, if Charlotte Douglas, decides to run, then she'll be the next. And Ballard's on the ballot. Charlotte Douglas will be the next state senator. Anyway, so that's it. But you never know you never know what's going to happen. To the filing period, and we'll just see what happens. But there's going to have to be something to shake up this bunch. But number one is back to Asa Hutchinson and this leadership bunch. I'm just going to keep commenting on what's come out. Jake Files, $80,000. Jake Files, $80,000. Michael Lamreau, Gilbert Baker. Look at just as what's come out.
I know. It doesn't make it's strange how much we know that is just like, whoa. You're not supposed to get elected and make a ton of money, right? Like that's not.
Well, yeah, and we're talking about personal muscle, but like I said, public service is about serving the public. It's not about them serving you, and that's what you see in this whole. Typically, that's what keeps the politics. It's just like I said about the Hutchinson. The minute they get beat in an election, what, the fastest thing, faster than a speeding bullet, is they're going to be a lobbyist and get a check off somebody.
Brian King, I appreciate your service. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and I can't wait to do it again.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
All right, folks. Senator Brian King, everybody. It's a shame he's not running. But, he leaves the window open a little bit if you listen to what he said. We got to take a...
Paul.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. More Bing Crosby. Sounding pretty good. Phone number, 870-275-9799. I don't weigh into sports very often, but I will tell you this. Somebody on college football trash talk nation has made a 57-second video with the meme, quote, "The number of people who have said no to the Tennessee head football coaching job." And it's a 57-second video of all of the times Donald Trump has said billions and billions and billions, and it just I watched the whole thing. They were all separate of him saying billions and billions. It's for you Tennessee fans, it's pretty rough. I'll tell you that much. All right, you want to talk about some dicamba? This is interesting. The state plant board, decided to ban dicamba, which is a Monsanto product. Now, this is a weed killer, dicamba, and it just doesn't work here. I don't know what to tell you, Monsanto. It doesn't seem like it works here to me, right? I think Monsanto tries to claim sometimes that it's user error, but the fact of the matter is, it kills more than pigweeds. It kills more than pigweeds, right? And this stuff won't lay down. You're trying to get the stuff to lay down. It's the technology apparently is not there, at least in Arkansas. I don't know if it's our humidity. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't work. It drifts onto other people's crops like soybeans, and it kills the soybeans. Now, this is a big issue with folks, and I'm a firm believer in that my freedom ends where someone else's freedom begins. It's not a complicated concept. So if you're doing something to your own property and that something blows over to someone else's property and causes them monetary loss, like quantifiable loss, then you can't use that product. It's very simple. It's a very simple concept to me. And I know it can, I know agriculture can be very complicated and everything else, but I'm just telling you from a principle liberty standpoint, I think it's a pretty cut and dry case. So the plant board says we're having a ban of about 7 months. We're not even going to allow this. We're gonna wait. We're gonna have a ban. And so Monsanto is now going before a judge, and they're asking the judge to stop Arkansas from being able to ban the weed killer because they're losing money. Monsanto. I know they're losing money, but I'm just saying it's Monsanto. Okay, this isn't some small town seed operation or something. Monsanto asked the judge Tuesday to prevent Arkansas lawmakers from banning the use of a weed killer that farmers in several states have said drifts onto their crops and causes widespread damage, according to Andrew DeMillo of the Associated Press. Pulaski judge, do we have his name? They want him to issue a preliminary injunction preventing the state from banning dicamba's use while the company challenges a prohibition approved by the Arkansas Plant Board. Let's see, what else do we have? Monsanto is presently losing sales every day. This is what they say. Monsanto is presently losing sales every day. The ban on in-crop use of dicamba herbicides remains in effect. The losses cannot be recovered in an action against the state. That's what it is, right? So, because you're not going to be able to sue the state over this. So Monsanto has got losses, but what about the fact, or what about the farmers that have losses? What about that? What about if your product just doesn't work? Anybody remember the automobile known as the Edsel? Joe, you probably don't know this. I mean, I don't remember it. I wasn't born in 1957. The Edsel is an automotive, company. And it was planned, developed, and manufactured by the Ford Motor Company for model years 1958 through 1960. With the Edsel, Ford had expected to make significant inroads into the market share of both General Motors and Chrysler and close the gap between itself and GM in the domestic American automotive market. Ford invested heavily in the year-long teaser campaign, leading consumers to believe that the Edsel was the car of the future, an expectation it failed to meet. After it was unveiled to the public, it was considered to be unattractive, overpriced, and overhyped. The Edsel never gained popularity with contemporary American car buyers and sold poorly. The Ford Motor Company, this is not in there, I'm reading from Wikipedia, the Ford Motor Company lost $250 million on the Edsel's development, manufacturing, and marketing. The very name Edsel became a popular symbol for a commercial failure. You see, Monsanto, it's happened before. I'm sorry. Other people invest in products and the products don't work, or they're not what they were advertised to be, and your new technology doesn't quite know how to settle down, and it drifts on other people's property, and it's destroying that property. So, that's what happens. People lose money when, you invest in something and it doesn't work. Boy, what an ugly car, though. You look at that photo, Edsel. Ugh. That is it's gross, and it's like some sort of brown color, like a really light tan brown. Anyway, so that's the thing. I don't know. I don't have an update on that. I don't know if they have the judge has granted the injunction, but again, they're asking for the injunction. Presumably, they want to get this done before people need the dicamba again. Dicamba has been around for decades, but problems arose over the past couple of years as farmers began to use it on soybean and cotton fields where they planted new seeds engineered to be resistant to the herbicide because it can easily evaporate after being applied. The chemical sometimes settles on neighboring fields. The state earlier this year approved a temporary ban on the herbicide sale and use and has received nearly 1,000 complaints about dicamba this year. The company has said the ban will deprive farmers of a needed tool and that an injunction is needed to avoid confusion while the judge considers its claims that the regulatory panel exceeded its authority. Growers need clarity, according to a Monsanto global strategist. The president of Global Strategy, Scott Partridge, Monsanto, is saying that they need clarity. They need to understand what tools they have. Pretty sure every farmer in Arkansas is aware and is crystal clear about the dicamba ban. Pretty sure you're crystal clear about that. Farmers have also complained about dicamba causing damage to their crops in other states, including Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, and Tennessee. The EPA in October announced a deal with Monsanto and two other makers of dicamba herbicides for new voluntary restrictions on the weed killer's use. Yeah, but in Arkansas, I think we take our farming pretty seriously here. And so, kind of our big thing here. So the plant board said, not going to use this anymore. Anyway, look, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even really want to get into the plant board's, authority here. I just want to talk about the fact that, can we just talk about the fact that Monsanto has a product that doesn't appear to work the way, right? And to me, I don't know if it's only Monsanto that says that maybe it's user error. You hear that when you hear any type of agricultural product that, please follow labeled instructions. You'll hear that in advertisements. But I don't know, that if I'm a farmer, that's even more insulting to me, especially if I am it's like, well, for some reason, Arkansas farmers are all morons. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that seems to be that's what they're trying to advance, the perception that, Arkansas farmers just can't figure out how to apply this stuff. It works fine. It works fine. It clearly doesn't. Anyway, there was a murder over whether or not dicamba had drifted onto somebody's field. Over in Mississippi County, somebody was killed. A farmer was murdered because of dicamba use. Okay, it's a hot-button issue. There's real damage going on here. Okay, next up. Next headline here. Extra protection plan for the Ten Commandments at the Arkansas Capitol. This, of course, after they put a Ten Commandment monument up at the Arkansas Capitol. And they open it, and the I guess not a day goes by, and you have some crazy person who had already knocked over one Ten Commandment statue over in Oklahoma knocks down ours. And pretty sure before he hit the gas, he said America or something. The second version of the Ten Commandments monument to be installed on the grounds of the Arkansas Capitol is planned to have extra protections to prevent it from being mowed over. Rachel Herzog, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Now, apparently, as I've read this article, what they're saying is you're going to have big, be about a 5 foot gap in between some concrete cylinders that go into the ground. And the concrete cylinders can only be taken out of the ground, according to this, if they are lifted up with a specific piece of machinery that has to lift it up just right? Probably equal pressure on all sides, that sort of thing, and it has to go straight vertical, right? So if a car were to ram it, they say that the stuff in the ground, or most of the concrete pillar, would remain intact. The top may break off, but essentially, from the way I understand it, what they are predicting is there's not going to be a car that's going to get through this 5 foot gap all the way around the monument. We will see. The replacement monument is a 6,000-pound, 6-foot-tall marker and was completed in October. Like the original, it was paid for with private funds raised by the American History and Heritage Foundation, which is something that Senator Jason Rapert created. It was his bill that he got passed. He wrote, got passed through the committee, got passed through, both chambers, and that's why we have a monument. So, and I want to reiterate, a lot of people think, I can't believe that violates my First Amendment rights because there's 10 Commandments. Well, first of all, no, it doesn't on a historical basis. They're a historical document, and, doesn't violate your First Amendment rights. Yeah, and number two, we are no way obligated to put a statue of Baphomet, the half man, half woman, half goat, that the atheist Satanists want us to be forced to put up. We are in no way obligated to do that unless the atheist Satanists can find a representative that agrees with them and will write a bill, sponsor a bill, run the bill, get it passed through one committee, get it passed through one chamber, get it passed through another committee, get it passed by the other chamber. And then if they do all of that and it becomes law and it gets signed or it becomes law without signature, if they do all of that and then the state refuses to put up the monument, you might have a case. But in this case, the monument's paid for with private funds, which is a whole nother thing. So, yeah, your First Amendment rights aren't being violated, so get over it. That whole idea is ridiculous. Phone number 870-275-9799. Now, back to the national front. The United States Supreme Court, speaking of religious freedom, is set to rule on the case of the baker who refused to make a cake for a gay couple. Supreme Court justices heard arguments on Tuesday. Now, this is the Democrat Gazette article. I want to go to the Daily Caller article. I like this one better. Okay? So, a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court appeared sympathetic Tuesday with a Christian baker from Colorado who declined to create a custom wedding cake for an LGBT RSTLNE, would you like to buy a vow couple. Several justices expressed concerns about the integrity of the civil rights and public accommodation laws, and the court generally struggled with the proposition that Phillips has a speech interest in his custom cakes. So the cake baker here is saying he shouldn't have to bake the cake for two reasons. Number one, that this is a form of art, and he can use his creative artistic skills for whoever he wants. That he can't be compelled to use his artistic skills in creating a cake by force, okay? They're less, according to reports, they're less sympathetic to that argument, and they're more sympathetic to the fact that religiously his conscience disagrees with being forced to participate in a meaningful way in a religious ceremony. So it even says here in the baker, like, okay, he would bake them generic things. He would bake the gay couple donuts or bake or whatever, but a custom wedding cake used for a wedding ceremony. And I'm not really sure what he was asked to write on there, but apparently what he was asked to write on there, I don't know, maybe it was something like love wins. He disagrees with that. So I completely agree with the cake baker on multiple levels. Of course, they're trying to say, the Supreme Court saying, well, this case could have an effect that really has a ripple-down effect for every civil rights law that we have. And they would be exactly right. They would be exactly right. This case does, in my opinion, have the potential to re-clarify your rights. I mean, we are this close to saying that if you want to operate and own a business in this country, you have to agree with everything all the time. That you can have no opinion if you want to make money in this economy. You can have no opinion or disagreement with anybody. It's got to be more. And that's very dangerous. But you can't, and I don't know if, I'm not afraid to talk about this, but you got to talk about the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. You have to talk about this. Nobody wants to, because we all hate racism, and we think it was terrible to have separate water fountains, and it was bad to not allow black people into restaurants because they're black and the color of their skin. Slavery's awful, yeah. But but honestly, a business owner before that law had the freedom of association, and yeah, you could be a bigot, and it was awful. Now, the thing is, a lot of this bigotry was on the way out anyway. But the government steps in and says, no, you're going to seat everybody, and I think everybody agrees with that. They say, yeah, of course, because we're human beings and we're endowed by the same Creator. But fast forward now, because nobody wanted to say, hey, look, I think people have a constitutional right, even if it's unpopular speech. I think people have a constitutional right to do things that other people disagree with, and if racism is one of those things. And it's in the context not of government, but in the context of a private business, we said, no, you don't have a right to do that. That's what we said. And the Supreme Court is now hearing a case that if they rule it the way it looks like it's going, it could undo some of the Civil Rights Act. I'm just telling you, this is what the left is going to be screaming about.
Don't business owners also have the right to say, we're not allowing you to use our services for whatever reason? It doesn't matter what it is; they have the right to do that. So, in this case, a baker has the right to say, "I'm not going to bake a cake for you, regardless of whatever the reason."
I don't have to give a reason.
Yeah.
I don't. At this day and age, it's just a subjective question. You would say, yeah, in theory, but.
I thought that was something that...
No, not really. I mean, that's one of the reasons this is in the Supreme Court. I mean, of course, I think he might have said...
Is it one of those unspoken rules that really doesn't exist, but everyone kind of like, it's there?
Yeah, it's there, but but it's more there because I think most people would be like, well, okay, is this guy really going to take me to court if I don't serve him or make a cake, or you know what I'm saying?
Or if
someone, like a dare.
If someone walks into your business and they're being a jerk, that you have the right to ask them to leave the premises.
But you don't know. Not if you can't say no because of religious. You know what I'm saying? Like this whole thing. If you take the logic where they want it to go on the left, it's you can never have a disagreement with anybody over anything. And right now, you can't disagree over same-sex marriage, okay? But maybe you could have a disagreement. You know what? You're a jerk. Get out of my store, right? But tomorrow, okay, calling somebody a jerk could just be created out of thin air to be some sort of racial slur. And so now you have to give your services. This is really about slavery is what it's about.
Well, no, the analogy that I was giving wasn't necessarily someone being like calling someone a jerk. Is someone walks into your store, they go up to the cashier line to pay for whatever it is, and they're really just kind of a mean person to your employee, do you not have the right to walk up to them as the business owner and say, you can leave your stuff, please leave? You're being very disrespectful to
Yes, you're supposed to. Yes.
Okay, that's what I was. That was the analogy I was trying to give. Yeah. I just did a very poor job of
Well,
explaining.
no, I'm just saying it's this case is going to be huge, especially if the Supreme Court comes down on the side of the religious freedom of the baker. The left will go into a complete meltdown. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock, I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? I mean revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? I mean revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government
better not tax our patience.
The more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patients will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody.
All right, that about wraps things up for today. I want to remind everybody this broadcast is available over at paulharrell.com. That's Paul, HARRELL.com. You click on video archives, or you can get the podcast. Now, there's a couple different ways you can get the podcast. You can just go to the website, listen to it there, or you can go to the iTunes store, not the App Store, iTunes, search for the Paul Harrell Program and subscribe, and podcasts are going to get downloaded immediately to your phone. Hour one's got uploaded, right when we were coming on the air here at 5. And or you can go to SoundCloud, get the SoundCloud app. You can find it there. SoundCloud is a great app as well. So feel free to do that. And that's all the time we have for today. We will be back here tomorrow for a brand new 2 hours of conservative talk focused on the issues that affect Arkansas. Now, interestingly enough, we do have a great show for you. We're going to be talking with more state representatives about what Christmas means to them. And you certainly want to be here for that because those segments are, I think, a lot of fun. And we've got more state news to get to. There's a story I've been working on, and I teased it on Monday. It's still not ready. It may be ready tomorrow, though. And it'll be pretty big stuff. Got to go. Arkansas. Be safe.